betrayed and killed by his own brother. 5,000 years later, he awakens trapped inside the fragile body of a baby, but that innocent shell hides the power of the most feared mage in history. In a world ruled by the descendants of his enemies, Alice is reborn, ready to rewrite fate itself. Stay until the end and witness how far genius will go when he returns from death seeking vengeance. It all began with a catastrophic event that years later would be called the Apocalypse War. A mysterious enemy appeared in the skies without any prior warning. They were grotesque beings who used the same magic as humanity, the Unknown Ones. With the invasion of these beings, who were later called fallen angels, humanity was pushed to the brink of extinction without any chance to fight back. But a single great archmage emerged, and alone he saved the world from destruction. With his overwhelming power, he completely annihilated the army of angels. The young man used a unique magic to repel all those mysterious enemies at once, and that's how peace finally returned to the world, ending the conflict. He turns around satisfied, announcing with a smile that now everything is resolved. The scene then takes us to the Magic Kingdom inside the Grand Palace of Magics. In the palace's main hall, an important coronation ceremony was about to begin. The crowd goes wild with the arrival of Alice, thanking him for saving everyone. People shout the name of the great archmage who walks without paying much attention to the praise. Then he sits on the royal throne while the people acclaim him as their savior. He thinks he has finally become the king who will rule the world as the first emperor, or at least that's what he thought until he was interrupted by a familiar voice. Alice looks up and sees Sophia, his younger brother, asking what he wants. Sophia calls him brother but quickly corrects himself, calling him first emperor. Well, things got a little confusing now. They're both boys and have girl names. Sophia asks with a cute face if he can place the crown on him, leaving Alice speechless. He becomes thoughtful since normally the archbishop should perform the coronation. But when he looks at his little brother making that pleading face, he seems to change his mind. Then the archbishop approaches and says that for them, it would also be a great honor. So Alice agrees with a smile, saying that it's all right and he can proceed. Sophia gets super excited with the answer and happily thanks his brother. Alice replies that he's happy too because Sophia is the only brother he has in the world. In the background, the archbishop and the other clerics watch the scene showing joy. Meanwhile, the crowd below continues shouting, hailing the first emperor. Sophia then takes the crown and gets ready, announcing that the ceremony is about to begin. He thanks for everything so far while preparing to place the crown on his head. And with a strange smile, he says goodbye to his brother, saying farewell forever. At that very moment, Alice feels a sharp pain in his chest, completely in shock. Sophia stabs him mercilessly, revealing his betrayal right in the middle of the coronation. He realizes that his brother's reversal magic wasn't active at that moment. Then he explains that with his guard down, he could easily assassinate him like this. Alice doesn't understand the reason, questioning why, since they were just two brothers. But Sophia only holds him mockingly, saying that he knows why. And in the background, the clerics watch the scene with a very suspicious smile on their faces. He says that Alice was a fool and that now in peace, his usefulness has finally ended. He announces that from now on, he will be the first emperor and will rule the kingdom. Then he looks at his brother with disdain, ordering him to hurry up and die already. Sophia turns to the guards and says that his brother seems a little tired and orders them to take him to an isolated room where no one will ever go. The archbishop agrees, commenting that it must be exhaustion from the long war. With a victorious smile, Sophia observes everything while the people acclaim him. And thus, the cries of celebration for the new emperor echo throughout the kingdom. The scene shifts to Alice on the ground, realizing that the dagger had a lethal poison. He laments, for he fought for everyone and sacrificed everything for the good of the kingdom. But his dream of becoming a beloved king was ending before it even began. With tears in his eyes, he calls out for Sophia, not understanding the reason for the betrayal. With the memory of his happy childhood, he swears that he will never forget what happened. He coughs up more blood, feeling that his body was already reaching its limit. But if that's how it has to be, he decides to use one last trump card. Then he activates his forbidden secret art with the maximum power he can muster. He decides to reverse his causality so he can reincarnate through the cycle of rebirth. Even without knowing if it will work, he bets everything on this miraculous chance. The scene fast-forwards to the present day, more precisely to October 2026. His eyes open slowly and he wonders where he has ended up. He finds himself in a very luxurious room, a completely unknown place to him. Looking around, he notices an old map on the wall and very refined furniture. On top of a shelf, he also sees some picture frames and a globe. With that, he's certain that his plan worked and the reincarnation succeeded. But his body felt strange and slow, maybe a side effect of the magic used. Then he notices that there's a small hand mirror right beside him. He picks up the mirror to look at himself but gets scared when he sees his own hand. When he tries to speak, he panics as he realizes he can only make baby sounds. And when he looks in the mirror, he screams in panic upon seeing that he has turned into a baby. He cannot believe that he has reincarnated into the body of a helpless child. But amid the shock, he seems to have a sudden and important realization. A maid named Sayari enters the room asking if he has already woken up. He tries to ask about the world he is in but can only babble words. The maid does not understand and finding it cute, picks him up to hug him. He tries to explain that it is not like that, but she keeps thinking he is just fussy. She calms him, telling him to stay quiet while rocking him gently. The boy is impressed by how good and obedient he seems to be. And in her arms, he feels so relaxed that he ends up falling asleep. He falls into a deep sleep while the maid smiles affectionately. The scene shows the baby sleeping peacefully and the nanny watching him with a serene look. Suddenly, he wakes up startled and sees that 2 hours have already passed. He remains sitting in the crib, thinking about the situation. He realizes that he cannot resist sleep because of the baby's body. Besides that, he also cannot communicate properly to explain what he wants. In that case, he decides that he will need to come up with a plan and act efficiently. And with a determined look, he unlocks the crib latch to escape. Even with his limitations, he knocks down the crib side and falls hard to the ground. So Ori hears the noise and enters the room, shocked by what she sees. She finds the baby on the floor, surrounded by books he knocked off the shelf. The nanny runs to him, asking in panic how he managed to get out of the crib. Worried, she picks him up and asks if he got hurt from the fall. She places him in the baby chair, relieved that he is fine but still frightened. Then, she asks him to wait a little as she will prepare his food. With a satisfied look, the boy celebrates that his mission was accomplished. He managed to get children's books to gain basic knowledge about the current world. Then he discovers that he has reincarnated 5,000 years into the future. In October 2026, he becomes thoughtful, drinking his bottle and absorbing the new information. He realizes that scientific and technological progress was remarkable in this new world. Now the wisdom acquired through learning shines brighter than victory in the arena, but he knows he will need more documents to understand everything better. And for that, he decides he will have to charm the nanny so she will take him to the library. He wonders where the parents of that body are since he only sees maids in the house. With a serious look, he hands the empty bottle and asks her to fill it again. The nanny is impressed to see that he already finished everything, making her happy. She strokes his head and tells him to grow up strong and healthy. He realizes that the milk was not bad even though he did not like it in his past life. Then he wonders if taste also changes when one reincarnates into another body. While receiving the affection, he babbles something to try to communicate with the nanny. But the headmaid appears, asking if she is still taking care of the baby. She reminds her that there is still work to do in the kitchen, leaving the nanny desperate. The headmaid complains about the delay but at least praises her quick response. Then she orders the nanny to go to the kitchen, saying she will take care of the baby. The boy only watches the interaction, not quite understanding what is going on. The headmaid turns to him with a very serious and intimidating look. Looking at him, she asks the baby to slide. The boy is confused, not understanding what that meant. Then she turns in another direction with a strange smile. Then she starts arranging the books the boy had knocked to the floor. She organizes them back on the shelf, placing everything carefully in its place. And when she puts away the last book, she reveals a small hidden jewelry box. The maid stares at the little box with a greedy, desirous look. The boy immediately realizes that she is planning to steal the family's jewels. She thinks she can blame the baby's mess to say that the jewel disappeared. With a wicked smile, she turns toward the boy, thinking he understands nothing. But he stares back with a serious look, showing that he figured everything out. She finds that insolent gaze strange and decides she will need to discipline him. She grabs the thermos, saying she used it to warm up his milk. And with a cruel look, she says that she will love to see him cry from the hot water. She throws the water straight at him, but he does not seem frightened at all. The boy becomes enraged by her actions, releasing an impressive aura of power. He activates his magic and reverses the attack, making the water return directly to her. The maid screams in pain, begging for water to put out the fire on her skin. The pearl necklace falls from her pocket, revealing what she had stolen. The boy picks up the jewels, showing that he managed to recover the valuable item. With a confident smile, he realizes that his magical abilities are still intact. The scene cuts to the next day, showing the front of the luxurious mansion. The nanny says there is a really fun park ahead for them to go to. She describes the place, saying there are fountains and swings for him to play, but suddenly she feels the stroller being pulled in another direction. The boy points to the other side and she asks if he wants to go there. The scene focuses on the blue sky with white clouds and green trees around. The nanny is surprised by his attitude, but it seems that she is going to agree. She then takes him to a huge building, which in fact is a library. The boy takes advantage of the distraction to grab several books and hide them in the stroller. With that, he hopes to fill in some of the gaps from these 5,000 years that have passed. He plans to read everything in secret when the nanny is not nearby to watch him. The nanny pushes the stroller thoughtful while the boy pretends to be asleep. She finds it very bizarre that a baby doesn't like parks and only cares about books. Then they finally arrive back at the mansion, ending the day's outing. With a smile, she opens the door and announces loudly that they have arrived. And in the living room, a couple welcomes them back, seeming to be his parents. The nanny greets both formally, referring to them as master and mistress. Suddenly, the woman runs toward the stroller, shouting the name Alice. The mother then picks the baby up from the stroller, overjoyed to see him again. She hugs him lovingly, apologizing for leaving him alone for so long. He then realizes that they are his new parents and that his body has the same name as him. Another maid announces that she will prepare dinner and the parents thank her. The protagonist observes the mother thinking about how beautiful and kind she is to him. The father apologizes, saying that his condition forced him to stay away. But the mother scolds him, saying that his illness is the priority now. Upon hearing that, Alice becomes curious about what illness his father might have. He laments that not even America's advanced medicine work, but the mother encourages him, saying that they cannot give up and must keep searching. However, the family's savings are running out and the mansion might be mortgaged. She suggests reducing the annual donations they make to the local orphanage, but he refuses, saying that helping those children is his reason to live. Alice listens to everything in silence, processing the complicated situation of his new family. He admits that the mansion is comfortable and that he would not like to lose it. And as the donation story shows, his new parents seem to be good people. Then he decides that he will use his powers to save the couple from this problem. He reaches out his hand to his father and the mother asks if he wants to go into his arms. The father smiles but laments that he might not be able to hold him like that for long. Alice uses his reversal magic to scan his father's body. He suppresses his magic output to apply the secondary effects of the reversal. With that, he realizes that human anatomy hasn't changed at all in 5,000 years. And upon checking the magical meridians, he finally finds the abnormality. The father holds him in his arms, and Alice babbles while reaching toward his chest. He touches a specific point as if searching for something. With a precise touch, he activates the acupuncture point, and the father feels a jolt. The man bends over in pain, and the mother asks worriedly what is happening. He is confused, not understanding what he just felt in his body. Suddenly, notices that his body is feeling strangely better. With a sparkle in his eyes, he realizes that his condition is truly improving. He smiles from ear to ear, confirming that he feels much better. The couple celebrates, believing that a miracle has just happened there. Alice smiles with satisfaction, for he knows that his new father's life is saved. But suddenly, he starts feeling an uncontrollable drowsiness taking over. He yawns, realizing that he is getting very sleepy after using magic. In his father's arms, he ends up falling asleep again, unable to fight it. Sometime later, he wakes up in his crib feeling a little better. He looks at his mother, who is also peacefully napping in an armchair nearby. He understands that his baby body cannot handle the strain of using magic. Therefore, he decides that he will avoid using magic until his body becomes stronger. But to read the books he took, he uses his magic to levitate them to the crib. Carefully, brings the books in the bottle closer without making any noise. He convinces himself that this reckless use of magic was just a one-time thing. Later that night, the full moon gently illuminates the mansion. In bed, Alice thinks that now his parents and his home are finally safe, but he wonders what the meaning of his reincarnation in this new era is. He is certain that there is a reason, and he promises that he will find out what it is. Meanwhile, a suspicious group invades the mansion led by a mysterious man. One of them comments about the fancy mansion, and another reminds that the master is sick. And with an evil smile, he says that because of that, the house's security is weak. The thieving maid appears all bandaged up, saying that she already showed them the place. The leader throws a bag of money at her and then orders her to leave. With a cruel smile, he orders everyone to invade and eliminate anyone who sees them. And with a battle cry, the group prepares to storm the house. In bed, Alice sleeps peacefully, drooling a little, unaware of everything. But suddenly, he wakes up sensing a strange presence approaching. He realizes there are intruders in the house and a smile appears on his face. With a determined look, he decides that he will drive them all out by himself. A magic circle appears on the wall and the invaders materialize inside the house. They use teleportation magic to enter without being noticed by anyone. The leader confirms there are no magical barriers, calling the owner naive. He says that according to the maid's map, the master's office is right over there. Then he orders them to steal everything valuable, and one of the henchmen asks about the staff. With an enraged look, the leader orders them to kill anyone who crosses their path. Meanwhile, Alice's parents sleep peacefully in their room, unaware of everything. The group advances through the corridors until the leader suddenly stops. He and his men arrive before a large door, which appears to be the office. The leader orders his henchmen to search for a magic stone. They obey. They turn everything upside down, checking the shelves, behind paintings, and under furniture. But the leader finds it strange that he can't locate the magic stone anywhere. Suddenly, of his men calls him, pointing to something in the corridor. On the floor, a high-purity magic stone glows brightly in the dark. They celebrate for finding it, but the leader finds it odd that it's in the hallway. One of the henchmen peeks through another door and finds more magic stones. He is shocked to see that they are gems worth 100 times more. The leader enters the room and finds the protagonist sleeping peacefully in the crib. They decide to grab the jewel first, not caring about the baby there. But suddenly, he opens his eyes, staring coldly at the leader. The baby starts crying and one of the henchmen says he'll silence him. But the leader yells to kill him, advancing with a dagger in hand. He attacks mercilessly, but Alice activates his reversal magic and defends himself. The invader's dagger is repelled, flying straight back toward him. The leader is startled when struck by a teddy bear, not understanding anything. All the toys in the room begin to fly, hitting the invaders with full force. With the impact, they are thrown back, crashing against the wall. The leader feels a crushing pressure as if his face is being squeezed. Suddenly, he hears the baby's voice, calling them insignificant thieves. Behind a bedsheet, the protagonist pretends to be the court mage and says he inverted their gravity. He warns that his magic is far beyond that and that he can kill them. The leader grumbles, saying he didn't expect to find a bodyguard there. Alice demands that they answer who sent them or else they will all die. The leader lies, saying there's no mastermind and that they acted on their own. Alice then says he will spare them, ordering them to drop everything and disappear. The leader agrees to obey, asking him to release the gravity spell. But as soon as Alice releases him, he stands up and tries to attack again. He accuses the protagonist of lying and prepares a powerful magic attack. The invader fires the spell, but it dissipates in the air, forming a thick smoke. With that, the mage puppet that Alice was using is revealed. He was also using a cell phone to produce a voice to speak. He then tells them that they will end up paying with their lives, leaving the boss desperate. The boy stands up in the crib, ready to go after the thieves. With his original form in mind, he prepares to unleash his full power. He fires a massive energy beam that pierces through the wall and vanishes. The next morning, police cars arrive at the mansion to investigate the case. The father explains that when he woke up, he found the invaders tied up at the entrance. The officer is confused as the homeowner doesn't know who did it. A policewoman reports that the maid confessed but said she was threatened, and the strangest part is that the criminals claim they were defeated by a baby. The maid and the master look at each other, not understanding that crazy story. Meanwhile, Alice crawls through the living room acting like a normal baby. The mother praises him, impressed by her son's strength and cuteness. The father smiles in relief, saying that now there's nothing to worry about anymore. The mother comments that despite the danger, Alice seems to be in a good mood. Suddenly, Alice stands up and remains on his feet alone for the first time. The parents are shocked and encourage him to continue, amazed by the feat. They can't believe he's already walking even though he was just born. With a smile, he stretches his arms toward his parents, acting adorably. The father picks him up saying that he's incredible for already being able to walk. He says that Alice might be a genius, but the mother thinks he's exaggerating. Alice thinks that, for now, having physical independence to walk is already good enough. But he knows he will need to train not only his intellect but his body as well. However, if he becomes a prodigy, that might end up being a problem. Therefore, he decides that he needs to grow up quietly and discreetly. The nanny brings him milk while he's on the floor reading surrounded by books. She looks at him shocked by the baby's intelligence and behavior. And now, with the father present, he is certain that the baby is a genius. Both the father and the mother are astonished to see the unusual scene. The nanny explains that it was the protagonist who insisted on reading all those books. The father wonders shocked if their son is truly gifted. Alice looks at them as they reach a conclusion about it. The mother suggests enrolling him in an institution of magic and science for geniuses. He gets excited about the idea while Alice remains silent, just observing. And without caring about the commotion, he goes back to reading, focused on his studies. Reading the books, the protagonist discovers that 5,000 years ago, Earth had an ancient civilization. That heroic nation brought peace to the world, and its ruler was Emperor 괊ᴜᴜ. 괊ᴜᴜ was the great archmage who led the apocalyptic war against the angels. And even 5,000 years later, the lineage of that kingdom still remains alive and strong. Today's world peace comes from the reign of the first Emperor 괊ᴜᴜ. The current world empress is the 100th 괊ᴜᴜ who rules the entire world. Alice understands that they completely erased his existence from history. He reflects that history is often distorted by the victors. With an enraged look, he thinks about how his brother 괊ᴜᴜ deceived him. And with a wicked smile, he decides that he will get revenge for everything. He swears that he will expose the false history and bring the truth to light. And for that, he will use his unique magic of phenomenon reversal. Suddenly, the nanny sees him floating, thinking it's a poltergeist phenomenon. He realizes he reversed gravity again by accident because of his anger. The maid becomes terrified, not knowing what to do with that bizarre scene. Because of that, she runs off calling for her master. Later, in the dead of night, the protagonist continues planning his revenge. The next day, he practices his first steps with his parents encouraging him. Suddenly, speaks his first words, and the mother asks what he said. With a smile, he looks at her and calls her mommy, leaving her in shock. The parents can't believe he can already call them by name. The father stammers, saying that he must be a prodigy for already being able to speak. Then, the maid announces that the preparations for something are already ready. The mother gets startled as she hadn't realized it was already time, so she calls her little one to take a bath with her. Alice becomes confused by that since he isn't really a baby. She repeats excitedly that it's bath time, leaving the boy desperate. He tries to refuse, saying that he can clean himself with his purification magic. But the mother insists, saying that the bath is mandatory since he sweated while playing. Alice has no way out, realizing that the bath with his mother is inevitable. In panic, he starts calling for his father, pointing at him non-stop. The father smiles and says it's fine if he wants to bathe with him instead. In bed, Alice thinks in relief that he managed to escape that situation. With his goal set, he swears that he will confront 괊ᴜᴜ's descendants. He will show everyone the truth of the history that was hidden. And with that promise, he decides to wait for his body to grow before acting. The scene moves forward 3 years, showing the mansion surrounded by cherry trees. His parents take him to kindergarten, impressed by the place. Now 3 years old, Alice already wears a school uniform. Ready to begin, he thanks his parents for enrolling him in such a prestigious school. He wonders if he will get along with friends or suffer from bullying. Or perhaps, with a sly smile, he might become the class troublemaker. Nearby, the parents of other children chat about their kids' grades. A woman boasts that her husband is the director of the Magic Institute. Another mother comments that they've already met at Magic Association meetings. The protagonist notices that the school is full of children of elite candidates. The welcome ceremony begins with the principal on the main stage. She welcomes the new students, saying they are children of distinction. Alice thinks this is his first experience in society and decides to act. The scene shifts to the classroom where the children run and play cheerfully. Teacher Sally introduces herself to the class, all excited for the first day of school. The children surround her, super enthusiastic, but the protagonist stands still, watching from afar. He doesn't mingle with the others, preferring to stay quietly in his corner. And even during playtime, he doesn't interact and remains isolated. The teacher approaches him, asking if something is wrong. She has never seen a child so antisocial and tries to cheer him up with toys. The teacher becomes very worried about him while he just keeps reading his book. Suddenly, a group of children from another class approaches them. The other kids find their presence strange, asking who that boy is. A boy introduces himself as ꞉ᴌ, declaring himself the most important person there. He brags about being the #1 aristocrat and the others flatter him. Alice looks at the scene with disdain, finding it all very pathetic. Later, Alice walks through the school hallway with the other children behind him. He hears a commotion coming from the courtyard and stops to see what's happening. A group of elite boys is picking on a shyer boy. The boy apologizes nervously, not knowing what to do in that situation. The protagonist observes from afar, finding it strange to see a student from the star class apologizing. The bullies say that only first-class nobles are allowed to enter there. The boy is left speechless, unable to defend himself from the accusations. They force him to clean everything since he isn't paying his share. They throw dirty water on the boy, laughing and mocking his situation. Alice arrives and says that they're taking the joke way too far. ꞉ᴌ turns around, irritated, and asks what his problem is for interfering. Alice tells the boy that he didn't do anything wrong and that it's enough. The bullies recognize Alice, and one of them says he looks poor too. ꞉ᴌ decides he'll deal with him as well so he won't be bothered anymore. But suddenly, they get scared thinking that Teacher Sally is coming. ꞉ᴌ decides to punish him anyway, throwing a bucket of dirty water at him. Alice activates his magic and reverses the attack, making the water go back to the group. ꞉ᴌ doesn't understand anything, watching the water fly toward him. The water hits him directly, leaving him completely soaked. They scream, complaining about the mess and wonder what happened to ꞉ᴌ. Alice approaches the boy and holds his hand, smiling. He calls him to leave and the boy follows him, still confused by everything. And the two run off, leaving the filthy and humiliated bullies behind. Alice asks if he's okay, and the boy thanks him for the help. He introduces himself, and Alice says it's a pleasure to meet him. Alice says that social status and donations don't matter, leaving the boy confused. He advises him to resist when something bothers him and not to wait for help. He asks if the boy understood, then walks away, leaving him thoughtful. The boy finds the advice hard to understand, but keeps reflecting on it. The next day, Teacher Sally invites everyone to play. But the protagonist, as always, stays in his corner, not joining the fun. At drawing time, he sits beside his friend, but doesn't seem interested. The friend points to his drawing and asks what that is. The teacher comes closer and is shocked by what she sees on the paper. She recognizes that they're high school level magic theories. And to cover it up, she changes the subject and calls everyone to play with blocks. But Alice, using the blocks, builds a perfect statue, leaving the teacher in panic. The teacher runs off to inform the principal, while Alice grows bored. Hidden, the bullies plan to get revenge on Alice for the humiliation. ꞉ᴌ says he'll show who's boss using a magical device. In the hallway, the protagonist and his friend walk together, chatting calmly. ꞉ᴌ spies from afar, getting ready to put his plan into action. The protagonist senses his presence but pretends not to notice. The boy reveals that he set a magical trap to blow Alice up. He brags about stealing the item from his father's company, and with a vengeful look, he says he'll blow Alice up completely. Alice finds the trap so obvious that it's tiring to even pretend he didn't notice. The friends encourage him and ꞉ᴌ activates the trap, shouting for him to suffer. A huge explosion happens and the protagonist's friend screams in fright, but he protects him with his reversal magic, creating a shield. With a furious look, he activates his power and prepares for a counterattack. And with a single gesture, he reflects the explosion back at the bullies. ꞉ᴌ and his friends are stunned, not understanding what just happened. The explosion throws them far away with incredible and unexpected force. They fall to the ground dazed while Alice gets ready to leave. The teachers come running, startled by the sound of the explosion. They find the boys lying on the ground, not understanding the scene. Alice covers up, saying that a gust of wind knocked them down. The teachers end up believing it, blaming the temperature change for the wind. He calls his friend who follows him, still a bit shaken by everything, and the two walk away, leaving the confused teachers behind. The teachers keep watching, still trying to figure out what happened. Later, sitting on a bench, the protagonist's friend calls him to talk. He asks how he can become someone strong like the protagonist since he has no confidence. He confides that he's always bullied and can't bring himself to tell his parents. Alice advises him to resist because people have infinite potential. He says that he used to be the same way but changed by fighting back. With a flashback of his brother, he says he once believed in that man's potential. The friend becomes thoughtful, reflecting on the word potential. With a determined smile, he says he understands and that he'll try his best. Our hero thinks that if he wants to change the world, he has to start there. The next day, the children play cheerfully in the schoolyard, but Alice as always stays in a corner reading while the teacher watches. Suddenly, she notices that one of the children isn't feeling well. She runs toward the girl who has collapsed on the ground, breathless. The girl says she doesn't know what it is, but that her chest hurts. The teacher shouts for someone to call an ambulance while Alice approaches. He uses his magic to scan the girl's body and discover the problem. Alice realizes that part of her magical meridians are blocked. He knows that this happens to people who have too much magical power, and with a quick touch, he unblocks the meridians. Healing the girl, he says that her magic flow is stable now, but that it was only first aid. He calls the teacher who hangs up the phone, frightened by the situation. She runs to the girl and is shocked to see that she is already better. Our hero covers up, saying that the exercise caused a bad magic flow. And with a smile, he says that he will leave the rest to her and walks away. In the principal's office, the teachers talk about Alice's accomplishments. One of them says that a broken toy was mysteriously repaired, and another teacher says that a magic projector fixed itself. The principal listens attentively, finding the boy very interesting. At dismissal, Alice's parents praise him and he says that he had fun. He takes the opportunity to say that he has a favor to ask of them, and with a serious look, he asks if he can leave kindergarten. The parents panic, shouting in surprise at the unexpected request. Later at home, they talk about Alice's request. The father asks if he's sure since the school is prestigious. They ask if he was bullied or if he didn't like the teachers. Our hero denies it and says that there's simply nothing left for him to learn there. The parents are shocked by the answer, unable to believe what they heard. He then says that he has a request to make to them with a serious look. But the maid arrives, announcing that the principal is on the phone. The mother answers, surprised by the unexpected call from the school principal. The principal asks both parents to come to the school the next day. Alice becomes worried, thinking that the magic bomb incident was discovered. The next day, they go to the principal's office, anxious about the conversation. The father asks the reason for the meeting, hoping it isn't a problem. The principal says she called them to talk about Alice's exceptional talent. The parents are confused, not understanding what she means by exceptional. She lists his accomplishments and confirms that it was Alice who did all of that. She also remembers that he helped his friend and stopped the bomb. He realizes that, in the end, everything was discovered by the principal. She explains that Alice's abilities surpassed those of a normal student. The father reads the report, speechless at the level of his son's power. He thought Alice was a genius, but he never imagined it was to that extent. At that moment, the protagonist says that he also has something to say. With a serious look, he asks her to let him skip a grade. The mother is shocked, not understanding the request to skip a grade. He confirms, saying that he wants to skip kindergarten and go to elementary school. The principal smiles and says that she was thinking the same thing as him. She says she will treat him as a special and early graduate. Alice is surprised, thinking it was quite easy to negotiate with them. The principal says that it's an educator's duty to nurture a prodigy's talent. The parents celebrate, happy with the news that their son is a prodigy. A few days later, a farewell party is organized for Alice's school. His classmates gather to say goodbye, sad about his departure. They say they wanted to be friends but were afraid of him. Our hero apologizes, and the girls invite him to play one last time. He notices that his friend is standing in the middle of the crowd, alone. The boy says goodbye, promising that he will do his best to change. The bullies are sitting on a bench when Alice's friend approaches them. He stops in front of them with a determined and brave look. Ʇᴜᴜ asks what he wants, not understanding the boy's attitude. The boy takes a deep breath, gathering courage to confront the bullies. He says that he hates being mistreated and asks them to stop the bullying. Ʇᴛ becomes furious at his audacity and lunges at him angrily. He says that the school doesn't discriminate against anyone and that everyone is equal. Ʇᴛ's friends are shocked by the statement and he becomes embarrassed. Ashamed, he stammers and promises that he won't do that anymore. The boy smiles, satisfied with the result of his courageous act. Our hero watches from afar, seeing that the boy managed to solve the problem. He thinks that the world is full of potential and that everyone can change. 6 months later, Alice goes to take the entrance exam for elementary school. Wearing his uniform, he looks ready and determined for the new challenge. He says goodbye to his parents, saying that he's going in to take the test. They encourage him, telling him to relax and do his best. He thinks that from now on, he will just keep doing what he always has. With a shout of excitement, the parents walk into the school with him. The school is a renowned magic academy that trains future mages. All the mages it produced became elites around the world. Alice knows that to begin his plan, he needs to enroll there. From afar, a man watches Alice and his family with disdain in his eyes. He recognizes our hero and calls him a fallen aristocrat trying to enter the elite. He tells his son that the stain on their family's name is a monstrosity. Alice hears everything but remains unfazed, keeping a firm and confident posture. The scene shows a packed auditorium with all the candidates ready for the exam. Our hero sits beside other children, ready to begin the test. The principal announces the start of the exam, hoping that they all become mages. And with a fiery speech, he says that the future of the world is in their hands. The students shout in response, excited and full of determination. But he concludes by saying that everything is under the guidance of the world emperor. Alice listens to everything with contempt, not letting himself be carried away by the excitement. With a furious look, he swears that he will take revenge on Sophia. He walks through the corridor, holding the paper with the exam information. As he reads it, he finds everything very easy and proceeds confidently to the test. But on the way, he accidentally bumps into a boy who glares at him. The boy yells for him to watch where he's going, and our hero apologizes. He knows it wouldn't be good to cause trouble there, so he decides to ignore it. That bully is the son of the man who was watching him earlier and is always surrounded by followers. With disdain, he tells Alice not to think he'll pass the exam. He calls him a stain on the family name and walks away, leaving him behind. The scene shifts to the school field where the magic ability evaluation begins. The children practice shooting at moving targets, which are considerably difficult. Alice observes the others standing still without moving or participating in the training. He analyzes the level of the test, finding everything very basic and simple. Suddenly, the same bully attacks him from behind with a magic strike. He calls him a fallen aristocrat and says that he disgraces the family. Alice stays silent, processing the words and the nickname, Family Stain. The boy mocks Alice's father, saying he's poor and sick. Feeling superior, he says that only elites like him deserve the academy. He summons a fire salamander, preparing to show his power. With a massive attack, he hits the target with full force, breaking the meter. The others are shocked by his power, which is at a high school level. He turns to Alice, telling him to go home since he has no chance. But Alice activates his magic and manipulates gravity, preparing to fight. With a single gesture, he launches the target into the air with his magic. The target hits the meter with full force, breaking it in the process. The other students are shocked and frightened by the display of power. The target shatters into 1,000 pieces, creating a rain of debris. The bully is left speechless, watching the dust settle with Alice standing still. Alice then launches one of the target pieces toward him like a projectile. The boy screams in fear, curling up to protect himself from the attack. The piece hits the ground hard, creating a crater and knocking him down. He falls to the ground trembling and even wets his pants. And standing tall, Alice looks down at him with a superior gaze, showing who's in charge. That's it, Alice. I like badass protagonists like this. With a threatening look, he says that the bully is the one who should go home. A blonde girl watches the scene from afar, her gaze full of interest. She seems impressed by Alice's attitude and keeps observing him. The teacher announces that Alice has passed the magic ability evaluation. Alice doesn't even care, already thinking about the next tests he needs to take. With a determined look, he prepares for the next stage of the exam. The scene shifts to the classroom where the academic aptitude test begins. Alice looks at the exam, finding everything very easy and even boring. Suddenly, hears someone beside him mumbling. "It's a girl," and she explains that she forgot to bring an eraser. Making a kind gesture, Alice breaks his in half and offers it to her. He extends his hand and says, "Let's both do our best on this test." She smiles happy with his kindness and motivation. From afar, the blonde girl observes the interaction with a curious look. The scene shifts to the cafeteria where the students have lunch during the break. Our hero's parents prepared a carefully made bento for him to take. The mother says she included the octopus-shaped sausages he likes. The father asks if he's doing well on the exams, and Alice confirms. They say they also did their best during the interview with the principal, but suddenly the man who insulted him earlier approaches the table. He calls Alice's father by name with a mocking tone. The father greets him back, looking a bit uncomfortable. The man gets irritated by his tone, reminding him of his inferior position. Alice's father tells him not to be so cold since they're childhood friends. But the man yells and slams his hand on the table. Alice and his mother watch the scene, worried about the commotion. He says that our hero embarrassed his son during the exam. Alice's father is confused, not understanding the man's accusation. The man yells at him to stop making excuses, saying he's getting arrogant. And in anger, he slaps the table, knocking over Alice's food. Everyone around looks at the scene, shocked by the man's behavior. He calls Alice's father names and threatens him with a look of disdain. And to humiliate him even more, he pours his drink on the floor over the food. Our hero stands up furious, but his father stops him from doing anything. The father bows apologizing for his son's behavior. He begs for mercy since a scene there could disqualify Alice. Alice realizes that his father is enduring all of that because of him. He remembers his past life and how he acted recklessly. He was assassinated for neglecting that principle, but he learned his lesson. And with a determined look, he uses his magic to clean up the mess. The hot drink flies straight into the man's face, who screams in pain, and he stays there complaining that it's hot. Furious, he threatens Alice's father and runs off to get water. Alice's father is left speechless, shocked by the unexpected situation. Our hero calls him tugging on his pant leg to get his attention. He suggests that they eat somewhere else to avoid more trouble. The father notices that Alice's lunchbox is back, untouched and clean. Alice covers up saying that he wants to eat outside, looking up at the sky. The parents look at each other confused but happy that everything is resolved. The scene shifts to the school arena where the simulated battle is about to begin. The stands are packed with everyone eager to watch the matches. The announcer declares it's Alice's turn and he steps into the arena. He takes a deep breath preparing for the challenge ahead. Suddenly, he realizes that his opponent isn't who he expected. It's the same bully from before, the son of the man who humiliated him in the cafeteria. Our hero smiles, finding the coincidence very interesting and timely. And soon after, he notices that the boy is saying something. Apparently, the bully wants to get revenge. Alice's parents grow worried about the sudden change of opponent. The boy boasts that his father bribed the original contestant. He thinks that even though it's against the rules, now he can take out his anger. With a wicked smile, he gets ready to fight thinking it'll be easy. And to irritate him, the protagonist says that he knows he wet his pants the other day. The bully becomes furious and charges at him, shouting that he's going to kill him. He says he'll punish Alice's cheating with his own cheating. He shows a magic bracelet he got from his father that increases his power. The artifact is rare and expensive, capable of multiplying magic power tenfold. He says that the examiners were also bribed and will ignore item. And with an intense glow, he activates the magic bracelet's power, and he summons a fire salamander, creating a giant firebird. With a hateful glare, he says that Alice is finished and will be defeated. The audience is in shock as his magic is at a university level. The bully's father snaps his fingers with a victorious smile on his face. The massive attack hits Alice directly, creating an explosion of smoke. The boy celebrates, thinking he won the fight with his overwhelming power. But through the smoke, Alice appears unharmed and surrounded by electricity. The bully can't believe it as Alice's power is 100 times greater. He tries to attack again, but Alice extends his hand ready to strike back. With a single gesture, he prepares to show his true strength. He uses phenomenon reversal and launches a beam of golden energy. The bully freezes, watching the magic soar into the sky. Alice's parents scream, frightened by their son's power. The boy tries to defend himself, but the heat of the attack hits him full on. Alice walks toward him, surrounded by magical fire shields. He approaches and stares him down, with the bully trembling in fear. He says that normally, he would have ended everything with the first attack, but he noticed that the boy's magic power suddenly increased. The bully denies it, saying he didn't cheat. But Alice doesn't believe him. He touches the bracelet, and the boy realizes that the lie is about to end. With his magic, Alice shatters the bracelet into 1,000 pieces effortlessly. The boy screams, watching his expensive magic item being destroyed before him. Alice says that the cheating is over and asks if he's ready to fight. The bully collapses to the ground, trembling in fear of Alice's overwhelming power. With a furious look, he prepares to end the battle once and for all. His father yells for him to stop, but Alice doesn't listen. With a punch to the ground, he creates a crater, knocking the boy down. Alice's father says that the match is already decided and doesn't need to continue. Alice agrees and stops, leaving the boy on the ground, defeated. He turns and walks away, leaving the bully trembling in fear. The judge announces Alice's victory due to loss of will to fight. The audience throws confetti celebrating the overwhelming and impressive win. His parents congratulate him, proud of their son's strength and performance. He walks down the hallway, tired but satisfied with the outcome of the fight. Suddenly, realizes that someone is watching him from afar. The blonde girl who had been observing him before approaches and calls him. She congratulates him on his victory, saying that he fought really well. She asks if he's the Asuka who skipped a grade, and he confirms. Alice finds the girl strangely familiar but can't tell from where. Suddenly, vision becomes blurry and his body weakens. She asks if he can hear her, but he collapses from exhaustion. He falls on top of her, and she screams in fright, not understanding anything. Is that girl wearing shorts or underwear? That's the question. Sometime later, he wakes up mumbling in an unfamiliar place. His parents greet him, happy that he woke up and slept well. He asks where he is, and the school principal introduces himself. He says that Alice slept well, and that it's normal to feel exhausted. The father says that they were worried because he didn't return. Alice apologizes, feeling a bit embarrassed by the situation. The principal agrees and prepares to begin the final interview. The principal says that he will start his final interview now. He reveals that, in fact, Alice has already passed all the exams. The principal explains that he has never seen results like Alice's before. And he says that Alice is the class representative, an incredible feat for someone who skipped a grade. With a smile, he welcomes Alice to the school. Alice thanks him, excited to start working with him from now on. His parents cry with emotion, proud of their son's success. The principal observes Alice, sensing a unique and exceptional talent. He becomes curious to see what kind of school life Alice will have. The scene cuts to the school's opening ceremony in a large auditorium. Alice walks down the aisle with all the other students making way. His parents wave from the audience, proud, and he smiles back. He stops, sensing a familiar presence approaching him. The blonde girl stands in front of him, arms crossed and with an irritated look. She asks if he has nothing to say to her after everything that happened. But Alice asks who she is, not recognizing her from anywhere. She yells angry that he forgot who helped him during the exam. Alice remains confused, not understanding what she's talking about. Furious, she calls him clueless for not remembering her. She says that he really confuses her with that attitude of his. With a smile, she says that he's perfect to be her partner. She lists everything he did, proving that she had been watching the whole time. She says that he possesses everything an aristocrat needs to have. And with a sparkle in her eyes, she says that he's perfect to be her knight. Alice calls her a stalker, and she denies it, furious at the accusation. The ceremony continues. The principal gets ready to call the next speaker. He gives a speech saying that students must guide the world toward peace. The children listen attentively, excited by the responsibility. The principal then calls the student representative for his speech. Alice stands up, ready to walk onto the stage and speak to everyone. The students whisper, surprised that he's the speaker despite skipping a grade. The blonde girl counts to 7 with a disapproving look. Alice steps onto the stage, clears his throat, and prepares to begin his speech. He makes the pledge, promising to dedicate himself to his studies to bring peace. The other students repeat the words, hands on their chests, in a sign of respect. But Alice surprises everyone by challenging those who think they're the strongest. The blonde girl is shocked, unable to believe Alice's boldness. With a defiant smile, he says for them to fight without holding back. The other students are confused, not understanding what he's talking about. The principal watches everything with a smile, finding his attitude interesting. He thinks that he can't waste time and that this is the fastest way. After school, Alice and the blonde girl leave together through the gate. She asks if he's sure about what he did, and he confirms. He says that he wants to take shortcuts and that challenges are the best path. She looks confused, but he warns her about a surprise attack. He creates a magic shield and protects her from a fireball. The girl screams, angry at the sudden and cowardly attack. They get ready to fight with Alice in front, protecting his friend. A group of boys appears led by one with a blonde streak in his hair. He praises Alice's defense with a mocking smile on his face. He says he came to bring him down just like Alice wished in his speech. He says that the seniors will teach him the school's customs. Alice smiles, thinking it's great that his declaration spread so far. The two groups face each other, ready for the confrontation to begin. The leader mocks Alice's height, calling him shorty. Alice replies with a smile, thanking him for the help. Suddenly, it's announced over the speakers that it's already dinner time. The other group is confused, telling him to come back and fight like a man, but Alice says that he has the rule of dining with his family and needs to go. Furious, the leader attacks Alice, shouting that he's going to crush him. The other boys join in, casting their magic spells. But Alice uses his phenomenon reversal and traps them in an infinite loop. Their magic is swallowed and reflected, creating an explosion of energy. The leader is shocked to see his magic being absorbed by Alice. Alice absorbs the attacks and fires them back with full force. The explosion sends them flying, leaving them sprawled on the ground. They are terrified, not understanding how their magic was reflected. Alice tells them to get up and challenges them to fight for real. The battle creates a crater in the ground and everyone watches in awe. The blonde girl doesn't understand how Alice activates his magic without chanting anything. The leader shouts that he won't lose and prepares for another attack. He summons the lightning spirit with an aura of golden energy, and with a scream, he fires a massive lightning bolt toward Alice. But Alice stops the attack with a single hand without any effort. The boy is in shock, unable to believe that he blocked his strongest attack. Alice then creates a defensive barrier, preparing for the counterattack. The leader shouts in surprise, seeing the barrier form in front of him. The attack hits the barrier and Alice gets ready for the counterattack. With his magic, he reflects the attack back at the boy. The lightning hits the leader head-on and he screams in pain from the impact. He falls to the ground, defeated, and the blonde girl shouts his name. Alice says that he held back on the reflection so as not to hurt him too much. His friends are shocked seeing that he's still alive. With a victorious smile, Alice thanks him and calls him senpai. That night, the family gathers for dinner in a celebratory mood. The father asks how his first day of school was, curious, and with his mouth full, Alice says that he thinks he'll get along with everyone. His parents encourage him to keep studying, happy with his progress. Alice calls his father with an important question to ask. He asks if the school has a system for skipping grades. The parents are startled, realizing that he wants to skip grades again. He confirms, saying that he wants to do his best and make the most of life. The father gets excited and tells the maid to prepare red rice to celebrate. The mother smiles, knowing that he never changes his mind once he decides. Alice thinks that elementary school is too easy and that he'll graduate quickly. The next day, at school, the students whisper about Alice. They comment that Alice defeated all the upperclassmen the day before. They're afraid of becoming targets because of the incident. The teacher enters the classroom and tells everyone to sit down as class is about to begin. He explains that the school has a rigorous curriculum for training mages, and he warns that from now on, their conduct will be monitored. Everything will be evaluated from classes to dungeon exploration. Magic exams, written tests, and duels will also count toward their grades. He says that all of this will determine their rankings and scores. Alice and the blonde girl listen carefully, deep in thought. The teacher says that the first evaluation will be a basic ability. The students gather around the measuring device, ready to begin. A girl tests her power and the device displays all her stats. She sighs in relief at the result and returns to her seat. The teacher calls Alice, who approaches the measuring device. He knows he needs to adjust his power so as not to cause trouble. The teacher glares at him, saying he heard about yesterday's incident. He says he's going to teach Alice the proper relationship between teacher and student. Alice places his hand on the device and a blue screen with his data appears. He's surprised by the result, which came out far below expectations. He had suppressed his power but didn't expect it to drop that much. The teacher shouts, saying that he's the lowest ranking student in the class. He realizes that the teacher set him up, glaring with fury. And since that's the case, he decides that he won't hold back anymore. Suddenly, a shockwave hits everyone, leaving them dizzy. Alice unleashes his power and the measuring device explodes into pieces. The teacher screams in shock, not understanding what happened to the device. With a smirk, Alice says that he's leaving now and walks out of the room. He passes by the others, leaving the teacher with the broken device. The blonde girl approaches and asks if he was the one who did that. He pretends not to know what she's talking about with an innocent look. She says it doesn't matter, but now he's become the lowest ranking student. With a smile, he says that he'll find a way to climb the ranks. The rankings are published and the students check their scores. They use bracelets that monitor their actions and magical fluctuations. The teacher shouts that their evaluation depends on their deviation score. Alice thinks that with his low score, he has no choice but to rise. The teacher takes them to the courtyard to start the physical aptitude test. The test takes place on a sand field under the hot sun. Alice becomes exhausted and breathless, struggling to keep up with the others. The blonde girl approaches and says that he came in last in the race. He says that he has his own problems, and she realizes that he has weaknesses. He thinks that his body is still weak and remembers his father's illness. He realizes that he might have inherited his father's frail constitution. She asks how he can be her partner with such weakness. She reminds him of the day she invited him to be her knight. He finally remembers, and she asks what his answer is. He asks what her name is, leaving the girl irritated. She even calls him an idiot for not knowing. With a serious look, she introduces herself as Lisette and tells him to remember it. She demands an answer, but Alice seems distracted, looking off into the distance. It turns out that our hero notices something appearing there. He comes across a mission board, and Lisette explains what it is. She says that they complete missions as teams and that the list is right there. He's surprised to see that there are even field missions. He realizes that the numbers beside them are credits and that this could help him. The children gather to form teams, getting ready to make their choice. The other students group together, excited to start their first mission. But Alice and Lisette are left alone with no one to form a team with. She complains that everyone is too scared to approach them. She asks what he's going to choose since they're out of options. Alice looks at the board, thoughtful, analyzing the available missions. He points to specific mission with a determined look. The mission is triple a difficulty, recommended for groups of 30 people. Lisette tells him not to do that since it's a high-level mission. He asks what happens if they complete it, and she explains about the credits. He agrees immediately, and she yells, saying that he wasn't even listening. She says it's dangerous, but he only thinks about raising his ranking. The other students find out and think he's being insane. At the school shop, they prepare for the mission, already wearing their uniforms. She tells him to buy potions, but he refuses, saying that he won't need them. She yells at him, telling him to be more careful and responsible. Alice points to a book on the shelf, curious about the item. The book promises to dramatically increase points during missions. The shopkeeper explains that the book multiplies earned credits by 10. Lisette calls him an amateur, saying the item's conditions are too strict. But Alice ignores her and says he'll take the book, leaving her furious. She yells at him, telling him to listen to what others say. Alice realizes he doesn't have enough money to pay for the item he picked. The shopkeeper says he can pay at the end of the semester, and he agrees. The scene cuts to the mountain behind the school where the mission will begin. They arrive at the entrance of the cave, preparing to enter the dungeon. Alice activates the item he bought, ready to start the mission. She worries about the time, but he says they'll be quick. He warns her to run if things get dangerous, and she agrees. She regrets coming, afraid since it's her first mission. Alice notices her nervousness and calls her by name. He reassures her, saying that he'll protect her with all his strength. With a confident smile, he asks her to trust and rely on him. She gets embarrassed but agrees, saying that he's her partner. The mission begins and they enter the dark cave in the mountain. Lisette summons a salamander to light the way like a torch. With the cave illuminated, they move forward, ready to face the dangers. Suddenly, a group of monsters appears, surrounding them from all sides. Lisette screams in fear, terrified by the grotesque appearance of the creatures. Alice observes them and says that it's no time to be impressed. With one eye glowing, he uses his magic to scan the monsters. He analyzes them, discovering their species, stats, and abilities. With the information in hand, he prepares to fight them. He finishes analyzing them all and gets ready to begin the battle. Lisette says their stats are too high and that they should retreat. The monsters charge at them roaring and ready to attack, but Alice stands in the middle of them showing no fear. He releases a massive wave of energy pushing all the monsters away. With a furious look, he prepares to use his full power. He concentrates energy in his hand with purple lightning radiating from it. He says that he'll use reversal energy and asks what exactly is being reversed. And with a single motion, he fires the energy striking all the monsters. Lisette watches in shock as the monsters are disintegrated before her eyes. The explosion of purple energy annihilates all the monsters at once. With the monsters defeated, Lisette is speechless, completely impressed. Alice reminds her that he promised to protect her with a smirk. Outside, the teacher grows concerned and decides to investigate. He calls one of the older students with a serious look. The boy agrees, ready to follow the teacher's orders. He tells him to use his necromancer skills to teach them the school's ways. With a sinister smile, the senior promises that he'll discipline them. The teacher promises that he'll consider his performance in the grading. He says he'll teach those arrogant freshmen a lesson. Meanwhile, Alice and Lisette continue exploring the cave. Suddenly, a slime attacks, but Alice destroys it with his magic. He uses phenomenon reversal, disintegrating the monster instantly. Lisette watches, amazed at how easily he fights. She admits to herself that he's far stronger than she could ever imagine. She doesn't understand how his magic works without chance or elements, but she knows that he's the perfect partner for her. They continue exploring until they find an ancient structure. Alice recognizes the ruins from the era when he was alive. He feels nostalgic, and she asks what he's doing. They reach a dead end with nowhere else to go. Suddenly, a magic circle appears with an enigmatic message. A giant door materializes covered in ancient magical inscriptions. Lisette recognizes the writing, but Alice remains silent, analyzing it. She sighs, saying she can't decipher it yet since she's too young. She understands that the challenge is to show wisdom in order to proceed, but Alice approaches the door, extending his hand to touch it. He begins reciting the ancient incantation surrounded by a blue aura with an intense glow. He activates the door's magic circle. The door opens with a thunderous sound, revealing a secret passage. Lisette screams in surprise, unable to believe that he managed to open it. He explains that the text said to channel magical power into the wall. She's shocked that he can read the ancient script, and he confirms it. He thinks it's obvious since it's the writing from the era when he lived. With the passage open, they prepare to enter the new path. They advance through the dark corridor with Lisette lighting the way. Lisette feels nervous, but Alice reassures her with his calm presence. At the end of the corridor, they find a floating ring on a pedestal. Lisette is surprised by the item, not understanding what it is. Alice recognizes it as the bracelet of invisibility he once created. Suddenly, cave shakes and Lisette screams in fright at the noise. A massive lightning dragon appears, roaring and ready to attack. Lisette uses her magic to scan the monster, discovering its stats. She realizes that it's the mission's boss and that it seems very dangerous. She says that it's fine because she has her partner to help her. With a determined look, she tells Alice to finish off the monster. But he doesn't respond, leaving the girl confused and worried. She turns around and sees him almost asleep, exhausted from overusing his magic. He says that he used too much magic and can't fight anymore. He then asks Lisette to defeat the dragon alone. She's in shock, not knowing what to do, alone against the monster, and with a panicked scream, she prepares to face the challenge. Almost fainting, he tells Lisette to defeat the dragon on her own. She panics, saying that she can't do this by herself. He reassures her, saying that he's entrusting the mission to her. He even says that she'll have to manage on her own. Suddenly, he strikes her, hitting a pressure point on her back. He explains that he temporarily amplified her magical power. With a smile, he says that he's counting on her and faints completely with a bump on his head. She tries to wake him, but he's already sleeping deeply. With tears in her eyes, she realizes that she's alone against the dragon. The monster roars, and she gets ready to fight, trembling with fear. She decides that she needs to lure the dragon away from Alice. The dragon fires a beam of energy and she runs to take cover. She despairs thinking it's over, but something unexpected happens. With her amplified power, she can see the trajectory of the attack. She realizes that it's the effect of Alice's touch and becomes determined. With a confident smile, she believes she can win the fight. She casts an attack spell with all her strength. The attack hits the dragon but doesn't seem to cause much damage. She remembers Alice's advice to aim at the dragon's core. He says that it's all from his past life experience, leaving her confused. With a battle cry, she prepares to use her maximum power. She says that she'll show the power passed down through her family. She summons the spirit of the rose, trapping the dragon with thorns. With the monster immobilized, she locates its core ready to strike. She uses a wall of thorns to protect herself from the dragon's tail. With a battle cry, she releases her power, channeling it all into her sword. She launches the attack, striking the dragon's core directly. The attack lands perfectly, but it's not enough to defeat it. She jumps back, preparing for another strike. She charges forward with everything she has, ready to deliver the final blow, but the attack is shallow and the dragon counterattacks with a lightning bolt. She screams in pain as she's hit and falls to the ground. The dragon roars victoriously while Alice is still dazed. Fallen, Lisette laments, believing she's going to die there in that place.
Alright, that's the end of the story. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.